You will watch this review. Hey, it worked because you're here.
It's That Other Review Show, brought to you by Two Black Labs Audio and A Week in Geekdom.
Welcome everybody to another review here at A Week in Geekdom. Yes, we brought back That Other Review Show specifically for this video right here. It's X-Men Apocalypse. I finally had the privilege of seeing this a week early than in most theaters in North America, and that is an accomplishment by our standards here at A Week in Geekdom. Don't believe me? Here's the movie ticket for X-Men Apocalypse. And yeah, I am no movie critic. I paid to watch this movie, and I just review things for fun so I can tell you guys if you should watch it or you should watch something else. Now, first things first, I'm going to review this movie from a comic book fan's viewpoint and from a moviegoer's perspective, because they're totally different. I am not an avid X-Men fan. I do like them, just like every other superhero or comic book team or whatever, but I am not an avid reader of the X-Men, but I do like the movies. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I have some opinions for the fans and for the non-fans. We'll see how that goes. This is the 9th film on the X-Men franchise, and by now everybody's gotten accustomed to it. We've all seen the X-Men movies ever since 2000 with the first X-Men movie, but this movie goes back in time, similar to First Class and Days of Future Past. Those took place in the 60s and 70s. This one takes place in the 80s. First things first, I am not a big fan of traveling back in time for this, because I find it a little bit too weird, meshing old stories with old technology, and somehow these highly advanced mutants and whatever, I just like them in like real time. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge fan of it. I appreciate it because it really looks like you're reading that comic book from that era, especially with First Class and Days of Future Past. But with Apocalypse, I think it could have been a little bit closer to home, if you will. But the movie is a ton of fun. I really liked it. It was really fun. And I'll tell you why. Apocalypse might be my personal favorite X-Men movie. It's not the greatest. It has some faults, but I think it's great. Everybody did an awesome job in this. The cinematography was wonderful. I loved seeing all the scenes in Cairo, Egypt. I thought it was interesting that Bryan Singer basically just mixed a ton of tonality and colors, and it really reminded me of Matthew Vaughn's tenure with the X-Men franchise, the previous movie, First Class. It really reminded me that it can be a colorful movie, because if you go back and watch X1, 2, and even The Last Stand, everybody's wearing the ridiculous leather outfits, all black. And that's like the one thing I've always hated about the X-Men movies, is that I miss the colorful costumes, from Wolverine's iconic costume to the X-Men wearing their signature yellow. And First Class sort of played around with that, but at least this movie, you know, mostly civilian clothing, but most of the outfits are great, and eventually they do get the leather outfits that you see in the trailers, which remind me, the trailers, I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys, but the trailers kind of gave away a bit too much in my opinion. Another thing I really liked about this movie was the sound design. I loved Cyclops in this movie. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I loved the sound effect for his I-beam attacks, for his laser beams. I thought they were spectacular, and it looked pretty well. Same with the overall look of the movie. The CGI, when it worked, it worked. But unfortunately, some of the scenes were a little bit shoddy, a little bit mixed bagged in my opinion. Some scenes looked great, and then you had another scene where I was like, you can tell it's really muddied, and it could have been a little bit better. But then again, I'm not an expert, but these guys are doing an awesome job in and of itself, so I can't complain that much. James McAvoy did a really fantastic job as Xavier, and I know the go-to guy is Patrick Stewart, but I really love his take on Charles Xavier. It's really relatable, and he's funny, and it's not just that professor role from Charles. I can't praise him enough. I think he did a fantastic job once again encapsulating Professor X of the X-Men. Michael Fassbender in a strange redemption arc with Magneto. I wasn't too sure where they were going with the character at first, but it was captivating. The movie audience was a little bit shocked by some of the things they saw, and it surprised me because a lot of people were like into it. I don't know if I was the only one judging the movie or not, but everybody seemed to like it. I did as well, somewhat. With all these X-Men movies, I complain a lot about the character of Mystique. You see, growing up, this was the character I was used to. Not that. Even with the old films, I never liked the makeup thing whatsoever. I think it's completely unnecessary. You could have done something completely different, closer to home, and it would have worked even better. I'm sorry, I just do not like the reinterpretation for this character. You know, there's really no need for Mystique to hang around naked all day. I'm sorry. I would have liked the classic costume instead, or at least like Ultimate X-Men inspired. Moving on to the bland characters, and this is a separate category in and of itself. I'm sorry, but Olivia Munn did a great job as Psylocke, but the whole character was just a little bit boring in my opinion. Same with Ben Hardy as Angel. The characters, again, they look straight out of the comic books, except for Angel. They really needed more character development, I'm sorry. And that's one of the things that it could deter some purists from this movie, that there is a lot of setup for some really cool stuff, and not everything gets resolved, but that's on purpose, because we know we're getting more X-Men movies, and judging by that post-credit scene, it could go in very interesting ways. Finally, the newcomers, the characters we really were pumped about to see: Apocalypse, Cyclops, Storm, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee. And let's just say I was a little bit disappointed with some and really happy with a bunch of them. Cody Smith-McPhee, I think I got the name right, playing Nightcrawler was a huge hit with audiences because he really is the comic relief, but that sweet, innocent mutant that we all love, because I am a huge fan of Nightcrawler from the old days, so I was really excited to see a relatable Nightcrawler, and he was, for the most part. One of the other things I really liked was Evan Peters' portrayal of Quicksilver. He was a standout in Days of Future Past, and this is not the exception. Alexandra Shipp as Storm. Finally, the character's young, same with Nightcrawler, keep that in mind, but the character was done right. Seriously, I hated Halle Berry's interpretation of Storm in all 3 or 4 movies that she was on. It was just not great. One of the most powerful women in comic book history. And yes, this is a teenage version of Storm, but they did the character justice, in my opinion. It was a really interesting take on her, and I loved seeing the character develop throughout the film. Towards the second act, the Horsemen sort of remained the same, but by the end of it, you see that character growth that I really liked, and hopefully by the next movie, we can get an even more cooler, more badass Storm, because she did a fantastic job, and I was really pleased by it. Plus, I love Mohawk Storm. That's like the best look ever, and the lightning powers were really great on her, so that was awesome. Thank you, Fox, for Ty Sheridan as Cyclops, the infamous douchey Boy Scout that we all love to hate and hate to love. I thought they did the character justice as well. I really liked this version of Cyclops. It really was a million times better than Marston's version, than the previous versions. It was really fun. You could see the character grow into what we expect him to become, but at the same time it felt a little bit fresh. You know, he's got that cocky edge to him that I think fans will like, but the character was admirably done, in my opinion. And last but not least, one of my other standouts in this movie, Sophie Turner as Jean Grey. I thought that was fantastic. I was a little bit iffy when it was first announced. I would have picked somebody else for the role, but My God, Sophie did a fantastic job. Jean Grey is such an interesting character when it comes to the X-Men and the mutants that I think, like, yeah, the character could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but obviously if you know her rich history, this is her introduction. I'm hopeful that by the next movie, which is supposedly set in the 90s, hopefully they do set up a nice development for Jean Grey. Speaking of epicness, Oscar Isaac did a phenomenal job as Apocalypse. Yes, he could have done a little bit more. You'll see, when you see the movie, you'll know what I'm referring to. And the speeches he gave, especially when that missile sequence, you'll see it, was just brutally cool. I loved Oscar Isaac as Apocalypse. Growing up, I loved the animated series, and one of my favorite villains, Marvel villains growing up, that really made an impact on me was Apocalypse. And yes, this is an abridged, shortened, simplified version, but it works for this Fox X-Men universe. I thought it was great for what it was. It's not the Age of Apocalypse storyline from the comic books. Please do not judge it that way, but it's a great thrill ride nonetheless. Oscar really puts his heart into it, and I thought Apocalypse was awesome. I really liked the arrogance and the divinity of the character and the way he saw himself. And yeah, just great overall, man. I really liked it. It was a fun action movie. Some people were complaining that the first act of the movie is a little bit slow, but for us comic book fans, we love the slow moments so we can see the characters interacting with each other. But when the action finally hits, you better watch out, because it was awesome and really hit the geek spot. If you are a comic book fan, you are gonna love it in regards to the overall mythos of the X-Men. So overall, X-Men Apocalypse is a worthy sequel, and to me, it's my favorite one. It may not be the best one, but for me, it is. So there you go. Should you go watch it? Hell yes. If you're a comic book fan, if you love the X-Men, you need to see it, because Apocalypse, man, he is just fantastic. And if you are not an avid comic book reader, but you still like comic book movies, I think you will like it as well. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm so happy to bring that other review show back. So thank you guys again for tuning in, for watching this review. And if you like it, please subscribe and like this video down below. Tell me what you thought of the movie. Tell me what you thought of X-Men Apocalypse. And as always, you can follow me on your favorite social media platform, from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, Tumblr, and Periscope. Just type a Week in Geekdom, and I'm there for you guys. Thank you for tuning in to another installment. You can keep the conversation going through your favorite social media platform. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube page, follow us on Twitter, like our fan page on Facebook, and favorite our pics on Instagram. You can also write to us for feedback, suggestions, and such via aweekingeekdom@gmail.com. Until next time,